this morning. But the culture is collaborative. It's focused on high expectations for all students. And really, as John Hattie talks about, the leader of the school enables the conversation to really focus on learning dilemmas so that classrooms are always focused on improving, getting better on behalf of the students that we're serving. And if you look at some of the data from the Wallace Foundation, 25% of the gains in schools can be directly attributed to principals. We know teachers, absolutely, they're number one, but principals are also critical in this conversation. We also know that they account for 2 to 7 months of added learning per school year, and that we can, through effective leadership, increase student scores on standardized assessments as well. So it's absolutely critical that we're doing that. And the other piece that's really important is to think about who's inspiring. And teachers report that that principal who is truly effective really enables them to do more in their classrooms, and that the level of support, the level of collaboration, 55% of teachers report increased collaboration where we have a principal who creates that culture, who has that ability to really engage others in the critical conversations. So how do we build those skills, and what are those skills? Because as we visit schools across the country, these are the things that we've learned that we know are essential in today's world. Principals who have a systemic view of how to operate, how do you fit within the total system? Principals who can articulate a clear vision, mission, and the core values of not only their school, but of the district and of the community. I've already mentioned this, the culture of collaboration, having high expectations, and an unrelenting focus on those expectations. A strong instructional leader, this tends to be the number one thing that we hear from superintendents, from others, if we're really going to achieve the differences in student performance, in the ability of students to graduate and to be able to operate at a high cognitive level, creative level, and apply the knowledge and skills. It takes a strong instructional leader who can really work with teachers in a different way. Data-based decision making, and the ability to build a strong team, because it's not an individual, but it's the collaboration, it's the collective group within a school that can really make a difference. So how do you build that team? What does it look like? And we also really think it's critical that a principal creates a culture where leadership is really a disposition and it's distributed among many within the school. And of course, strong communication skills. So I want to talk about these critical skills. This is the first of a two-part series. The second part will be happening on Friday morning at 10 a.m. So we're going to focus today on the system, building the vision about the culture, and then on Friday I'll spend a little bit more time building the team, decision making, and what are the critical things that we're learning about communication and thinking differently about those communication skills. So part of this framework, we really do believe it's absolutely critical that we build a support system for principals within our schools, and we tend at the International Center to really focus in on executive coaching. And the very first thing that we encourage principals who are in this role, individuals who are aspiring to be a principal, really take a look at and do a self-reflection, and there's some tools that I'll mention that we encourage you to use. But so what is the disposition of the principal or an aspiring principal? What is your style? How do you engage with others? So it's really important to spend some time reflecting on who you are, what your leadership style is. We also really encourage, as you're thinking about a systemic approach to supporting and growing principals for the future, so what is your culture? What exists currently? And to do a needs assessment to get a sense. And this needs assessment really should be a collaborative process with input from teachers, from students, from others, parents if you can, so that you get a real good sense of what are the different perspectives around the culture of the school. And then we encourage you to really think about building a foundation with principals, and I'm going to talk about what that foundation should look like. And then we know that what really makes a difference is ongoing executive coaching that really focuses in on the strengths and the gaps of the principal. And of course, you want to monitor and keep track of progress as we're moving forward. So the first piece that I'd like to share with you today is how do you think about the system? And at the International Center, Bill Daggett is our founder and chairman, and Bill created the Daggett system for effective instruction, really based and founded on the good research that we know about systems in schools and how we want to be able to look at that. We talk about, and at the center of the diagram you see student achievement. It's really about rigorous learning for the adults, for students, and what are we going to do and how do we build a system to make sure that that's happening. And then around the student, we want to make sure there's effective instruction that is happening. And then there's three critical components that we're going to talk a little bit about: organizational leadership, instructional leadership, and teaching, and the critical role that the leader in the school plays in helping to really build this system focus. So as we talk about organizational leadership, it really is the ability to create that shared vision and a culture for success. And what are those organizational systems that have to be aligned with the vision? And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Instructional leadership, really focusing in on the instructional priorities, absolutely critical with the adoption of California's college and career standards, Common Core. How do you use data? And then absolutely thinking about building capacity through professional learning, networking for all within the school. And then as we focus on teaching, what will be those instructional shifts? What are the strategies? How does a principal really support those? Because what we know is that you've got to build a system approach to really building student achievement. And as you think about this system, put it in a context of what we might have referred to as a traditional framework of how things operated in the past and where do we really want to be as an effective leader. So in prior frameworks of thinking, very often leaders might have really focused on what teachers should do, teacher-focused, really focused on what's happening in the classroom. Vision is set by those in central office, and the vision was primarily defined in terms of academic measures. What's the content that we need to be able to ensure is happening? Rigid structures that really focused on the adults, not on the learning. And what we really know that is going to make a difference in schools is a leader who thinks about the entire system, and we'll go a little deeper into that in a few moments. And the system is focused on students. What do we need to do to ensure that student learning is maximized? And the vision is built collaboratively. Teachers, principals, community members, middle school, high school level, engagement of students. So it really does represent a collaborative vision for where the school needs to be. The vision is more than just academics. It's looking at those personal skills that we know are going to be essential for students to be successful, with a major focus on the learning. So it takes a system, not just a teacher, in order for us to make sure that we're going to build the capacity. But at the heart of this is the student and the work we need to do. So there are some critical elements that we think principals have to be thinking about in pulling their systems thinking together. So as you think about the teaching, which absolutely has to be at the heart because it's how we're going to support the learning. So how do you build that effective instruction? And do you have commonly understood expectations that are rigorous and relevant to the students? We want to make sure that leaders are supporting and recognizing